The Dominic King Show.
BBC Radio Kent.
We all know how Anne Boleyn's story ended, but even more remarkable is how it began. That's the thread of a new book, Becoming Anne, by Dr. Owen Emmerson and Kate McCaffrey of Hever Castle in Edenbridge. Owen is a regular contributor to this show. He's taken us all sorts of places along corridors, up and down staircases, and up close and personal to the possessions to the former Queen of England and second wife of Henry VIII at her Kent home. He's with me in the studio tonight. Hello.
Hello, it's lovely to be here with you.
You have been giving us over the last few years a real insight into Hever. I loved going there as a kid. As an adult, going there with family has always been a joy. But you've taken us in places that I think for a lot of our listeners, it's been quite an interesting behind the scenes. You have opened doors that maybe in the past have not been opened.
Oh, that's really lovely to hear, yes. One of the things that I've very much enjoyed doing in my role is finding new avenues to let people into the castle who might not necessarily be able to get to the castle itself. So we set up, for example, an online platform which allowed people to come inside Hever Castle, especially during lockdown. So we're glad you enjoy.
That period, actually, of the pandemic and the fact that the doors were pretty much closed in all of our big Kent venues, I started noticing that you particularly would don an outfit of some sort and find yourself on TikTok. I mean, you really have changed with social media the kind of sense of what we expect from a particular venue like a castle. And I love that. And I think it's really encouraged people to go, OK, the place is for me to visit, because we know sometimes historic homes, as much as the teams behind them are brilliant at bringing people in, they can often feel like it's a bit of history rather than a living history.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say. Yeah, we have an amazing marketing team and it's so wonderful to be able to work with them. And it's lovely to be able to bring in a new demographic as well. And I think because of lockdown, people had different expectations about what they wanted to do and what they were able to do in their local area. And it's been lovely to be able to welcome new people and new faces and to have them repeat their visit as well. It's lovely.
It looks like you have a lot of fun, though, as a team, that you really... And I know, having had the features on the show from you where you've taken us behind the scenes, you're so passionate, Owen, about the place. And are you doing your dream job, ultimately?
Absolutely, yes. I have to tell the truth that it is my dream job. I was one of those children who went to Hever at a young age and fell in love with the place and always dreamed about working there. So it's
crazy, though, isn't it? To actually have that thought when you're a kid and think, I love this place, and then be working there.
It really is. It's quite an honour and privilege, I have to say.
You really do have the keys to the castle.
Yes, absolutely. One of the best things about my job, I have to say, is locking up at night, and I just love having a few minutes with the castle to myself, and it's very evocative. I often scare myself. So.
I bet you do. I've been lucky enough to be there. We did a Halloween programme from Hever Castle one year, and we had effectively, apart from a couple of people who were there, the insurance, by the way, was ludicrous for doing this show. I mean, it was ridiculous. But we did the show from inside and outside the castle live for 3 hours on Halloween. And I have to say, the things we thought we'd planned, which were, to go off during the show as almost like a live programme event, of things going a bit not right. There were certain things that happened which weren't in the script, and everyone looked at each other. And I just remember the people who were working at Hever at the time, we're talking years ago, maybe even like 15 years ago, and the team just looked at us and they went, yeah, that wasn't supposed to happen. We thought they were winding us up. So little things like things being moved and all sorts.
Yes, it is an incredibly evocative space, I have to confess. And I think also because obviously the curtain walls are made out of stone, but the house is chiefly made out of wood. So you can imagine if you've had a couple of thousand people through every day, things like the timbers start to creak and move back into place. And yes, on a winter's evening, all the creaks and sighs certainly send shivers up my spine.
So you're a social and cultural historian, and your role ultimately is like what, a custodian, a bringing together of the story of Hever?
That's right. So I work under our amazing curator, Alison Palmer. I'm the castle historian and assistant curator, so I assist in the care of the fabric of the castle and the artefacts. And the other part of my job is telling a story and researching and trying to bring some of those myths out to the fore and question them, and also to highlight the importance of that place. It really is an incredibly important property.
But when I was a kid, we always had that tag of the childhood home of Anne Boleyn. You'd see it on train station posters, you'd read about it, you'd see a TV advert saying it. But really, Anne's story has really come of age, actually, hasn't it? Because you tell much more of a deeper story of Anne now at Hever than ever before.
Yes, I think that's true. As you say, it's long been known as the childhood home of Anne Boleyn, but we're really starting to uncover what the importance of that place was and what happened there during that time, because Anne wasn't this flighty individual. She wasn't a bit of skirt that the king was attracted to. She really made a difference. She was an incredibly educated woman, and that education began at Hever, and it began by the people who lived there. She had very important parents, very important grandparents. She wasn't a nobody. She wasn't this unknown individual who was plucked out of obscurity. She was very wealthy indeed. She was one of the 1%.
Even though at the end, towards the end of her life, she got a nickname that people started calling her, which was basically to turn her into a commoner.
Indeed, yeah, absolutely. And there was a concerted effort to denigrate Anne. Obviously, the charges that were levied against her at the end of her life were purely designed to blacken the family name.
What did they say with her Boleyn name? They changed it to something else, didn't they?
There were rumours of her being called Nan Boleyn.
Nan Boleyn, yeah.
To denigrate her, essentially. So, yes, I mean, anyone who replaces a beloved queen and who causes the break with the church in Rome is going to divide opinion. And my goodness, did she divide opinion. Not only in the country, but within her family. So, yes, she caused quite a stir.
It's funny that sometimes it gets lost in translation, or maybe in how history is taught at school. Maybe not now, but certainly when I was a kid, of realising the fact that, her child was Queen Elizabeth I. Elizabeth I. That kind of gets lost sometimes, doesn't it?
It does, and I think this is because we compartmentalise the wives. We're encouraged to do that by that,
the rhyme,
rhyme, the rather grim little rhyme, and but also I think we are almost encouraged to blame the wives for their fates. Henry's first wife, for example, Catherine of Aragon, suffered a number of losses of children, and somehow that's reframed as Catherine being a failure. Anne Boleyn is, her reputation is besmirched by the trumped-up charges held against her, and therefore we overlook the amazing accomplishments that she made and the influence that she had. And you're right, we even detach her from her amazing daughter, I would say the most successful of the Tudor monarchs. So, yes, part of my job is respinning the narrative and joining in an amazing amount of historians who've been doing that for some time.
When you went to look at that story and you continue to, I know each and every day, find out something new, which is incredible, just the idea. Along with Kate McCaffrey, you have written a book. It's called Becoming Anne. And I mentioned that kind of premise at the beginning of what we think we know and all the rest. The ending is clearly what is the almost headline of her life. But going back to the beginning and getting that whole sense of what Hever here in Kent meant to her, that must have been incredible to write.
It really was, because you're researching and writing in that place where the history happened, and we looking essentially at Anne's formative years. What ingredients went in to make her this amazing woman who captured the heart of the king and divided this kingdom, and actually there are so many different kinds of ingredients. Her education was very advanced. Her father Thomas was a humanist. He believed in educating his daughters as well as his sons. So she has, an eloquent grasp with the French language. She is afforded places at 2 European courts where she excels, and there's something amazing about knowing that began in the place where you're researching it. It's really captivating.
Has it become actually an obsession for you, the story of Anne Boleyn? I ask that, in no sense of being rude, just purely on the basis that I know that she absolutely, for you, is in the room.
Oh yes, I would have to say she's running through my veins, unashamedly, and I'm a big fan of her. But she's sort of a gateway drug to other kinds of individuals, chiefly women. I mainly look at the history of women, chiefly those who've been wronged as well. Have an affinity with them for some reason. But yes, I have to say she is my homegirl.
Becoming Anne with you and Kate is an event that people can come along, and it's a Q&A session. You talk about the book at the Two Sisters Theatre on Wednesday the 10th of August at 8 p.m. there at the castle, which has this amazing bunch of theatres now, doesn't it? It's all part of the whole experience there.
Absolutely. We've got this beautiful theatre who's run by this wonderful woman called Elsa, and it's my second time working with her, and I love working with her, and I'm so excited about giving this talk at Hever with the wonderful historian Kate McCaffrey, who is quite honestly the best person to work with. Her research is groundbreaking. I would actively encourage your listeners to look at her research on Anne Boleyn's books of hours. It's completely groundbreaking, and it's a unique privilege to be able to work with her.
How can people get hold of the new book?
So you can get it exclusively through our online shop. So visit the Hever Castle website, click on shop, and you'll find our book. It's only available through the gift shop, and we'll also be selling copies at our event on Wednesday the 10th.
And signing as well.
Indeed.
You have this amazing badge that I see you wearing often, which is the Bee of Berlin.
Absolutely, yes. Anne wore an iconic bee necklace with 3 pearl drops.
Brennan on BBC Radio Kent all these nights, and on the way we'll see what's trending.
We've been going like a hurricane.
In necklace form in our gift shop too.
When you think about all the stuff you've learned and all of the fact that we're in an age where we, saw that film a little while back, filmed here in Kent as well, The Other Berlin Girl, right the way through to 6 on the West End stage, looking at all of those lives. Isn't it incredible that this person is still having a major role within culture?
It is incredible. Anne on the scaffold, just moments before she was going to be killed, pleaded with people that if anyone was going to meddle of her cause, that she required them to judge the best. And I'm not sure if she expected that in 500 years' time we'd all be talking about her still, but I can guarantee that she would absolutely love the fact.
Social and cultural historian at Hever Castle, Dr. Owen Emmerson, Becoming Anne, is out now. Find out more on socials, drowenemerson.com, his website, Facebook, and also Twitter. You can find him as well with his name. And it's been great having you on the show and in the studio. And thank you for all those incredible behind the scenes that you're continuing to do for us on the show as well.
You're most welcome.